Hi there, and welcome to this episode of the Everyday Millionaire Mindset Matters podcast, where I'm joined by my wife, Olympic mental performance coach, Steffany Hanlon-Francie. In these episodes, Steffi and I have a conversation about the different aspects of what we refer to as Mindset Matters, because we believe that for those who are awake, we are living in and through the most impactful time in history. Your view of the world is the filter for how you will experience the evolution and changing dynamics of it. Our intention is to provide you with ideas, nutritious food for thought, and some tools that you can use to help you in being your greatest self and living your best life. Listen in, enjoy. Steffany, here we are.
Hi, hon.
The end of summer.
Crazy, right?
Where did August go? Where did the summer go? We had such a great summer, though. We really did have a great summer starting back in June, and it's been pretty fun. And of course, in between all that, we had a trip to Hawaii, trip to Montreal, you had a trip to Paris, trip to Alberta a couple times. So we've been having some parties. We had a pretty busy summer, pretty social and pretty fun.
It was really fun. And I think I'm, just to say how grateful I am to be able to celebrate and to be able to travel to see my dad and my brother and the kids and have the kids out here, which is super fun to have the grandkids out here.
Grandkids out here. A little more of that is in order for sure. That was tons of fun. They lived in the pool for the whole time they were here. It was great. And anyways, so let's talk about what we refer to, and the topic I want to hit on is, we'll call it the relationship rowboat.
Oh my gosh, I remember when we first came up with that.
Many years ago. And the thing about it is that, since coming out of lockdowns, which we're now well into that, but, a lot of things changed. People were very kind of locked down, and then now we're back into some kind of groove again, and people have moved on with their lives and getting things done. All awesome, by the way. And through that period of time, at least in our experience, and we can only speak for us, but our observation of others and conversation with others is that we know that within the dynamics of the polarity and divisiveness that has continued to be created, whether it be about what's going on geopolitically between Ukraine and Russia and Israel and Hamas and, Lebanon and all, even those global kind of religious, cultural divisiveness that we're observing. I mean, we're not connected to it, so it doesn't really matter, but in that regard, but we are observing it. And that ultimately, that's just a part of the many things that have divided people in terms of relationship. And so where do I want to go with this exactly? Well, let me give you the kind of fundamental. Let's give listener the fundamental, kind of philosophy that we had about the relational rowboat, which is that if we look at relationship as a rowboat and we're in the relationship together, and in a great relationship, 2 people or 5 people or whatever the number, people are, let's just talk about as if 2 people, they're both rowing the boat. And sometimes one person doesn't row as hard or stops rowing for a little bit. The other person keeps rowing. And then ultimately the other person picks up the oars and they start to row again. And then maybe you quit rowing for a little bit. That's just how sometimes relationships work. And we're primarily talking about friendships and business relationships, that kind of a thing. And then sometimes you wake up and you go, holy shit, I've been rowing the boat for a long time. I'm getting tired of rowing this boat. And you just feel like you're going around in circles. And what does that even look like? So I'm giving this kind of narrative, and then you can speak to it, please. And that is that ultimately what happens is that you start to realize that if you're not reaching out, if you're not connecting, and even sometimes when you do reach out and you do connect, you don't get answers in a timely fashion. They forget to respond. Oh, sorry, I forgot. It's like, oh, okay, well, okay, I've texted you 3 times in the past 3 weeks and you've gone dark and you don't know why that is. So somebody has quit rowing the relational rowboat. And ultimately, we have to pay attention to those things. And what happens when you quit rowing the boat? And that really was the ultimate test in, okay, I've been trying to row the boat, keep it going, but it's going around in circles. I'm not going forward. The relationship isn't moving forward. And so I'm going to quit rowing the boat and see what happens. And guess what sometimes happens?
The boat sinks.
The boat sinks. The relational boat sinks. So it's only to say that I think there's a part of, I know for myself, I'm a relational guy. I like relationships. I like, people. And I think psychologically, I think relationships are forever, but they're not. Things come and go and people come and go, and enjoy it while it is there and embrace it. And sometimes we just drift apart for all sorts of reasons, and it may not necessarily be a negative thing. Life happens, situations change, priorities shift. And the next thing you know, those people that you were hanging out with and really close to, all of a sudden they've kind of gone away. So do you want to kind of chime in on all of that big, long-winded opening?
Yeah, well, I think where I learned that is my mom always said that relationships are here to teach us for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And when you understand that there's a reason or a season or a lifetime, then you can put that in a category of what was that relationship for me and what did I create and contribute to that relationship in that time. And that way I learned not to be attached, because people have come and gone from my life and I've come and gone from other people's lives. But the reason we came up with the Rowboat story is when Erin was little, remember when she was little, maybe 10 or 11 years old, she had a best friend.
Erin's our daughter. Erin is our daughter, by the way.
Yeah. And she had a best friend and another best friend, and people were coming and going out of her life. And she was traumatized by the fact that sometimes she had a BFF and then sometimes she didn't have a best friend and all this stuff. And we actually sat down. And I remember one time when she was staying with us in the summer, and we said, sweetheart, you know what? Let's look at your friendships like a rowboat. And you guys are both in the boat at the same time, and you're rowing and you got the oars going and all that stuff. And then one of you stops rowing, and the other one stops rowing. And we started to use the rowboat analogy with her when she was maybe 10 or 11 years old. And I think it really helped, because when you create a story or an analogy about that and about the effort that people put into relationship, there is a story that gets carried on, is that if we don't keep rowing, we're not good friends. But sometimes we need a rest. Even in relationship as grown-ups, we need a rest sometimes. I know sometimes you pick up the oars and you row, and sometimes I pick up the oars and I row, and sometimes we're rowing together. But when you're in a good relationship, and when Erin was little and we were telling the story, is that if somebody stops rowing and the boat sinks, it's not a friendship. It's not a relationship. And we had to create the analogy so she was clear that it wasn't her fault. She wasn't doing anything wrong. It's just that sometimes people stop rowing, and it's not a bad thing. You just have to be aware and not be a victim to it.
Yeah, I don't think about it from a frame of mind, but I think some people would be, maybe they look at it and be offended because they don't know, or they realize that they've been rowing the boat. They may not use that metaphor, but they've been rowing the boat, and then they get tired of it and they're going, what the hell? I'm the guy that's always, or the person that's always reaching out. I'm the one that's always driving the relational bus, if you will, rowing the relational rowboat. And as soon as I quit, the relationship folds up and goes away. And I think that's really the message in all of this, is that, to your point, there is seasons of time where, and let's face it, I mean, we have had relationships that have kind of drifted apart. And then when we get back together again, it's like, well, this is cool. This is fun. Good to see you again. We just recently had that happen. As a matter of fact, literally very good friends of ours, we just drifted apart. They've got a very, very busy business. They got very busy lives. They got lots of cool things going on. And then when the lockdowns happened, we ultimately drifted apart, which was not to say that there was any animosity. There was no reason. We just got into our lives in that capacity. And they've recently circle back, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, how you been? It goes so good. I'm so glad to see you, and holy cow. And the next thing you know, we're getting together again. We'll go for dinner and we'll go to their place. They've been over here at our place a couple of times. And so that was interesting, is that we both quit. Really, that particular boat that relational boat, we all quit rowing it. Everybody seemed to just quit rowing at the same time. So the point is that there was no reason for it other than life got busy, priorities got busy, family, and what was going on with businesses through that period of lockdowns. And all of a sudden, it's like 4 years later, 4 years plus later, and we're finally circling back and rebuilding and recreating new things within the relationship. We'll have tons of new things to talk about. And the good news is it won't be about the lockdowns. It'll be about what's in the future and what's going on for us today. And that's kind of also a refresh of the relationship and a reset, if you will, of that relationship. That's one way to look at it. And then there's the other side of that, I think, which is through that period of time where we may have disconnected or people have disconnected in general, to look at it and just reflect on it and go, okay, why did it happen? Was there some kind of breakdown of the relationship, or it was just drifting apart because of what was going on in the world at the time? And for us, I think I would add that because we're really are spread out across the country, we know people from so many different cities that we are in relationship with. It is a little bit different for us, I think. I don't know. Anyways, I rant on, but it is time I think it's a way for us to provide context for people to reflect on relationship, and whether that be friendships or business, sometimes these things do drift apart. And is it time to pick up the oar and start rowing again? Might be the question you ask yourself.
I really love that you said that, because I think about the people that have drifted away from us and that have had to go into whatever survival mode or whatever mode they had to go into to take care of their lives, their families, etc. But I don't take that personally. And I know some people do. I can't imagine what it would be like if I took the fact that certain people have left our lives. If I took it personally and made it about me, I'd be devastated, or I'd be a victim to that. And I think that if we, expand the capacity around what's happened over the last 4 or 5 years and how things have changed and people have had to readjust and realign their relationships, and who's going to be there when you come back. And I want to be there. I want to be the person that's going to be there if people choose to come back. Is that I've never physically or intentionally left a relationship in a negative way, but I've also honored the ebb and flow of when people need to leave or come and go. I want to be the space, and I think you and I are that with our home, especially on the compound, is that we want to be the spaces that when people are ready to come back, we're still here. Like, we're not going to be the ones that are going to go, yeah, screw you, we're out, you did something wrong. I don't ever feel that. I don't ever feel that someone's done something to me.
It's an interesting point, because we do know certainly individuals who hold that, and that's the space that they hold for whatever relationship breakdown that they might have had. And we also, I've observed where, as I'm listening to them talk and speak, it really is also about them being a little self-righteous, a little needing to be right. It was something that somebody else did to them. They took it personally. And again, they're holding it as a little bit vindictive in all of that, and I think that it's hard to kind of have people reflect on that and ask themselves, is the relationship worth revisiting, or am I just needing to be right? And I have too much pride to go back and say, okay, well, everybody was fucked up at that time, and I apologize, and maybe we can shake hands and be friends again. I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic. I think there was so much emotional charge around all of what went on over the past 4 or 5 years. And as we go into the future, it doesn't seem to be getting that much better. I mean, as we record this, there's, the whatever called monkeypox hanging over everybody's head, and the potential of another lockdown. And there's a lot of fear and uncertainty, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And often that's used in the context of investments or real estate or whatever, but there's just a FUD around life right now. And I know that anybody, and there are many who are paying attention to what's going on in the world. And it is a very uncertain time. And I think there's just a lot of angst and anxiety and fear about what is in fact going to happen into the future. And that even goes beyond what's happening economically, although that's a big part of it. So this is where relationships can break down. And if anything, probably as we look at it from our perspective, it is about what relationships, what boat do you want, what part of who do you want in that relational rowboat? And are you willing to keep rowing and support and ask others to also row the boat?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And, there's a lot of analogies in that regard. And right, like back in 2020, 2021, people were saying, we're all in the same ocean. Let's work together, people. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not.
That doesn't seem that way.
We may be in the same ocean, but we all have different boats. And I think
we're all going different directions. Yeah.
We're all going
and
different directions.
People overboard. We're throwing people overboard.
Well, that's what happened, right? In our world.
Yeah.
And I just really got that I'm not going to be the person that's going to reject anyone. If people are going to come and go, I call it flow. Freedom, love, ownership, and wonder. That's what flow means to me. Freedom, love, ownership, and wonder. If I am going to be in the flow of life, that I want to be the space that people can come and go when it works for them. I'm not going to be the person that will ever reject anyone. And I don't know if that actually makes sense when it comes to boundaries and all that kind of stuff, but there's so much that's happening in the world that's bigger than us that we don't know. But if I can be the space for whether it's my friends or my clients or people that are going through, shit, because everyone's going through shit. But if I'm a space of non-judgment, if we're a space of non-judgment and we have the relational rowboat, so to speak, that can just pick up the oar wherever it's been without resentment. And that's the thing about the relational rowboat is that can you let people back in without resentment, without living in the past? And I really believe that is what will heal or what will help people move forward. We had an amazing conversation with a friend yesterday morning who's recently single and trying to find, relationship and people and, connection in the world out there. And what happened is it leaned into the conversation of authenticity. And I think about, the commitment of the boat that you're in. Are you being true to yourself and rowing the boat and presenting yourself in the world of social media or Bumble or Tinder or the dating apps or whatever in an authentic way? And I think, if we relate that back to the rowboat, if we're all rowing in the same direction, it's much easier to let the people in and out because they know what's true for you. They can get in the boat and they're like, yeah, I can trust this. But if you're not presenting yourself authentically or from a place of this is who I really am, people are going to get in your boat and go, whoa, what the fuck? Like, I don't know what this person is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot when it comes to relational rowboats that we can unpack and try to maybe have the conversation about it's difficult right now to show up for who you really are and to be authentic and to be judged and to know what's going on. So where are you putting your energy?
Well, I think that there's a couple things that you said that first off, you've never given me that acronym for FLOW before. Was it freedom, love, ownership, and wonder? Was that it?
Yep.
Yeah. Wonder. So freedom, love, ownership, wonder. So funny that you should put that in when we're talking about a rowboat because you're in flow. You could be in the river in flow, that the river of life. Oh my gosh, we could just, create a whole metaphor. We would almost be poetic around that. Holy cow. Anyways, the thing about it takes courage to be authentic. And then there's another part of it, which is really being able to own your own authenticity. Now, in the conversation that you're talking about with our friend is, when she looked at it and there was parts of it that she was putting out there, but she couldn't see it the way we saw it as good friends who love her dearly and, want to kind of support her around her. And we're going like, okay, but why aren't you saying this and this and this and pointing out some of those things? And it was she was great to receive that and go, yeah, you're right. I am all of those things. And then being able to express that because when you look at the relational rowboat, who do you want in the boat? You want somebody in the boat that aligns with you, number one, your truest, most authentic self, and they're in the boat because they know who you are and they're happy to be in the boat. If you're putting on this performer self all the time, and it's not that that's not authentic, but you want to go a level deeper at some point, don't want to be out in the middle of the ocean and then, hold it. Get out of my boat. I don't know if that's even makes any sense, but I love the acronym, by the way, and the courage it takes to be authentic, the courage it takes to get in a rowboat, be authentic, row the boat together, and really count on the other person. And I think the thing is that we're talking about this in terms of a relationship, a possible romantic relationship, but it's the same thing whether it's friendship, romantic relationship, even business relationships. It does take that level, depending on where you are on the business relationship side of it. But ultimately, to be your truest self does take some courage, to be authentic and to stand for that and be that way. I admire that courage, and I also know how hard it is to do that. So when you're in the relational rowboat and you're rowing, you want somebody that's rowing with you in flow, and that's the coolest acronym ever.
I think also is the noticing is that if you're an overgiver and you're rowing and 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 rowing, and then you don't notice the other person stop rowing.
Yeah.
It's so hurtful.
Yeah.
It can be so hurtful because the other person's like going with the flow, but they're actually not doing any work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of what I got to with our friend the other day is that she's doing so much work, had done so much work, and rowing and making it happen, and then noticing the other person's not rowing and being a participant and understanding your value as a human being. Like, honestly, when I know I'm rowing, I'm a full-on participant. I'm going hard. I'm rowing the boat. I want to participate. I want to engage. I want to financially, I just want to be that. I don't want to go for the ride, for example. And I don't know what that's like in the dating world right now.
I think that the challenge that is sometimes difficult is that you're rowing, and if you're not paying attention, you don't even realize that the other person is no longer rowing the boat with you and or is not part of the journey. So this is, within this kind of metaphor, if you will, I think it takes time to actually assess, look at what you're doing. You're putting the time, the energy, the effort into the relationship. Is the other person, in fact, also rowing the boat? Is there an appreciation for that? Some people go through, and we've been through it, where we've got lots on our plate. Maybe it's an emotional weight that we're carrying, or a lot of distractions and a lot of mental capacity being consumed, and we can't be our best selves in that relationship. We're not rowing the boat as hard, and or we're not rowing it as frequently because we've got all these other things going on, which is our ability, however, to actually state that, shine a light on it, put the other person at ease so that they're not trying to figure it out. That is also part of the awareness. So if you are that individual that are in that relational rowboat and you're not rowing it, and you've got a reason you're not rowing it, you might want to just mention it, sorry, I'm not as present as I could be. I'm not participating as much. I just got a lot going on. Not about you. It's all about me. And I'll circle back.
You know what? That takes a lot of self-awareness. And I appreciate you saying that, because you and I have had to fight for that level of communication. And I think I've tried with my friends over the years. And I think the ones that have stuck by me are the ones that have been able to say, you know what, I just can't be present right now. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stuck. And then to know that they can be a space for that and not take it on, not make it about them. And I think that's what you're trying to say, is that when somebody pulls back or stops rowing in that regard, is maybe there's a reason. Mm-hmm. Check into it. Ask the question. Are you okay? What's happening? Like, I think about the first supposition, I think about when I first started training as a performance psychologist in NLP, is that the first supposition is that everybody's doing the best they can. So if we come into every relationship, every business deal or whatever, is everybody is truly doing the best they can, or the best that they know how. If we come in with that first presupposition, then there's a lot of grace. There's a lot of room that we can actually then navigate. But if we assume that someone's trying to screw us over, then it's a very different rowboat. But my first presupposition, based on the training that I've had over the last 25 years, is that everybody's doing the best they can and nobody's trying to screw me. Nobody's trying to hurt me. And I even think of the people in the relationships that have ended, is that I don't think they're trying to screw me. I just think they're doing the best they can. And right now, we don't have an alignment on what's going on right now. And I have to let them go with grace and love.
And on that note, we'll wrap it up. When we look at our relational rowboat, we ask ourselves the question, are we rowing the boat and the other person has quit? Is the other person rowing the boat and we've quit and we haven't told them that we're not rowing that boat anymore and we're just drifting off? And we'll finish on flow, freedom, love, ownership, wonder. Are you in flow in your relational rowboat? Steffany, thanks for that acronym. Thanks for sharing your insights. And that's all I got.
That was fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. If you found value in the podcast, please take the time to rate and review and share with others. Share with your friends. As it is my goal to always improve and to provide the highest value for you, the listener. If you have any comments, suggestions, or questions you'd like answered, please email me at ceo@reincanada.com. That's ceo@reincanada.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, Patrick out.